All right, then we are joined by Sibusiso Sishi, who is Managing Director at IronSky, a risk and advisory firm. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you so very much for availing yourself to SABC News.
No, thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. All right, let's talk about how bad the problem is when we're talking about cybercrime and who are sort of the typical sort of victims. Who are these criminals targeting?
It only depends on, the financial reward that the criminals are after. So sometimes when they're attacking normal individuals, it's normally just opportunists. So for example, they'll send like a phishing email to many thousands of email addresses, or they'll send an SMS to many thousands of phone numbers in hoping that somebody responds to them, that they could actually they'll start to coerce them into either giving out money or giving out a username and a password.
Yeah.
And also another very important one is around emails, because people have been getting a lot of email spams where saying hey, your account has been compromised, your banking details have been compromised, click on this link, and they lead you to a fraudulent site. So those are the sort of people that they're targeting. But when it comes to companies, it's normally very different, because the people that are attacking the companies are trying to get access to the company, to ransom the company, to make the company pay them. So it totally depends on which attacking group is attacking what. So the more sophisticated groups prefer to attack companies because there's a higher reward, while there's some people who are just small scale. They're just going to attack users with just opportunist things that they're going to try to just to extort and get access to their bank accounts or get access to their social media accounts.
And these cybercrimes are getting more and more sophisticated, though, aren't they? I mean, and it's a concern because one wonders if law enforcement are able to keep up. I mean, you talk about the banking industry, and some time ago there were those strange debit orders. If I remember correctly, it was like a 99 Rand debit order of some sort. Even the banks were struggling to deal with that particular issue. I think I was a victim too at some point. But this is something that has been happening, and one wonders if institutions like banks themselves and law enforcement struggle to keep up. We're going to all fall prey victim, aren't we?
Yeah, totally true. The main issue is that cyber criminals are always two steps ahead from the rest of the security industry, the people who are trying to defend. So it's always a catch-up game. When you thought you've caught up to something, there's always something new that these hackers figure out or end up exploiting for their financial gain. So it's always a catch-up game. And you haven't been correct. Banks have been getting hacked, quite considerably everywhere around the world. And also the 99 Rand scam, it's a 99 Rand deduction. Yeah. It sometimes also becomes like an insider, a person who understands the system, and they're going to try to make money out of it. So by taking small little amounts of money that, for the bank or a person may not realize this is too small. I'm not gonna go complain to the bank. However, when you group them up with the amount of people that they've targeted, it becomes quite considerable.
Would you advise people, and I know a lot of people have had these discussions about getting rid of banking apps on their phones? I find it rather impractical because you're able to monitor your bank accounts and activity of the bank account with that particular app, and you're able to stop transactions using that particular app. So I don't know, that I would feel that sort of defeats the purpose. Where do you stand on this issue of banking apps?
So I've been seeing that because people have been saying that the criminals these days, they grab your phone and they force you to unlock it. Yeah. And then they force you to basically give them access to your bank accounts to stop moving monies. And I do know, I remember somebody speaking about it online, saying that the bank should have a sort of a side system where if somebody does obtain to get access to your phone and they start doing those things to your phone, that you could just put in those fake details. And that can notify the bank, but that's still I think the bank still have to go and investigate whether it's practical or not. However, to also go back to the original question around removing your banking app, I also find it a little bit unpractical because number one is now you can be carrying two cell phones, and increasing the likelihood of somebody getting access to your phone. So my way of actually protecting yourself is that you just remove things like Face ID, you know, or you can have a nice complex password and have a nice complex, don't use a pattern on your phone, use like numbers or a password that if you enter it multiple times, you know, the phone gets wiped. You rather have that sort of security where the phone gets wiped, then the hackers, then you also don't have access. The hackers don't have access, or the criminals don't have access to your phone as well. So there are things that you can do, and I would commend people just to go and investigate what kind of phones, you know, what kind of security they could add onto their phones, you know, just to protect them against, you know, against people who are going to be trying to, you know, to look, maybe poke their phones, their faces, you know, and try to unlock it and try to get access to their bank details like that.
Yeah, and just, you know, apart from the banking apps and so forth, just in general, how do we sort of protect ourselves from cybercrime? You know, as you say, you know, we're always going to be playing catch up, but what are the things that we need to pay attention to?
So I could give you a laundry list of things. I'll keep it rather short. So the first most important one is passwords. You know, as a segment that you have, people have got extremely weak passwords. And it happens all the time, or they share the passwords between many services. For example, you may find a person is having a password on their banking app, is sharing that password on their Facebook, their Twitter, and third-party websites. And what normally happens is that if that account gets compromised, if one of those services get compromised, then the hackers will have access to your password. And then they could just start playing around with the different services to see where they have access to. So my first advice to people is is something called a password manager. What a password manager does is that it randomizes your passwords for you for each individual service. That's number one. Number two, your social media, be extremely careful as to what you post on your social media. Because most people, when they pick a password, they always say they pick a password based on something that they have, know, or you know, or somebody that they know. You know, so a couple of ways. For example, my organization who got an access to many companies' accounts is just looking at the people's social media accounts. And chances are a password, something of their password is based on their social media account, whether they have their daughter, their son, their wife, their date of birth. So those are the sort of ways. And then maybe the last way to protect yourself is also just have you know, make sure you're protecting your identity. So using services like TransUnion, you know, to making sure that if your identity does get compromised, that you're getting notified of somebody's doing credit checks. Because normally when somebody does a credit check, you know, against another service, you know, and you didn't initiate it, your identity's been stolen somewhere. And registering for things like TransUnion, Xperia, or credit score, you know, those sort of third-party services, and have them notify you when any credit check has been done on your account, are ways that you can protect yourself as well.
All right, thank you very much for that informative conversation. Sibusiso Sishi is the managing director at IronSky, a risk and advisory firm.